everybody, and welcome along to PSGL Season 32. It's PSF1, and we are back for 2023. Happy New Year, and we are ready for some more PSGL action here at Portugal for the Portuguese Grand Prix. My name is Jess Ball, and joining me in the commentary box once again, we got Mr. Aidan Carter. Aidan, Happy New Year. How you doing?
Thank you very much, Jess. Happy New Year to you too. Yeah, I'm doing really well, thank you. Really looking forward to it, having myself personally missed the previous round in commentary for not being in the country. I'm excited to get back into it. It's been a long time since I last commentated, pretty much a month now since I last commentated on PSGL, so it's nice to get back into the swing of things, and proper league racing season is just starting to build up again, isn't it, as everybody else starts to announce their seasons or gets going again like we are. So yeah, excited to see what happens, and many interesting things go to look at championship-wise going into the final 5 rounds of the season.
Yes, definitely. And what hasn't changed, though, was Rudy, who's still top of the standings after another podium shown for him in Silverstone, which was wet the whole way through. It was intermediate conditions, typical British weather, really, to be honest. But it was Rowan who used up the whole race on the intermediate side and took his second win of the season. One of the only drivers this season to take 2 victories. The other person being Rudy, of course. 17 points behind, though, Rudy at the moment. But Rowan's got a point to prove. He still thinks he can still win this title. Legend, though, third in the standings, has not picked up a win despite the fact that we have both predicted that he was going to do well this season and potentially be championship leader. But he's 20 points behind Rudy at the moment and still could be one of the favourites going into this race as well, after he's done quite well as well. Now we got Kazizel in 4th, Tom in 5th, did not score any point a couple of weeks ago due to some incidents. We've got Asako, he had a bad showing as well. DNF. Fabi, being the defender himself, actually scored one of his best results of the season. He got my drive of the day in 7th position. Then we got Marlon, Louis, Marcos, Nogliano, your top 10 and 11. A few changes to make in this grid today. A few people have left the league. Nawarp's got demoted to F2. We got Steph, our F2 championship leader. He's promoted to F1. Unfortunately, he can't make it tonight, though, due to the fact his wheelbase is broken. Hopefully, he will get it fixed very, very soon. Romaninho is now full-time. Well, we could class him as full-time beforehand because he attended pretty much every single race. But there we go. He's not here tonight, though, either. He's out of the country. We got Service, who is replacing him as well. And I'm just trying to think who else is here. I think everyone else is pretty much full-time as I'm aware. We got a few other reserves as well. But Rudy, again, showing why he's top of the standings. But he doesn't really need to win. He's showing what Donerko has done last season. Won towards the beginning of the season, but picking up podiums when he can and showing his dominance.
Yeah, he's shown his dominance in a way, like I said, that Donerko did, in not a sense of dominating every race and winning from the front, but just being incredibly consistent. I mean, he's been on the podium every race this season apart from Zandvoort, and that is incredible consistency, especially from when we spoke to Rudy the first time round in the first interviews of the season. He did mention to us that this season's calendar really doesn't suit him as a driver, so the fact that he's been able to consistently perform and get on the podium in every race bar one this season has been testament to how much effort and how much work he's put in and how well he's been doing. So yeah, fully deserved to be at the front of the championship, and is now over a race wins distance ahead of the second place man in the standings, which is Rowan. And yeah, like you mentioned, Legend still without a win, 3 second place finishes, but the fact that we haven't seen a Legend win this season, considering the wins he put in at the end of last season, is astounding. So maybe tonight is the night, after a bit of a break, that he can maybe turn the tide a little bit.
It could be the pressure that he was put under this season. Legend thinking, I must win this season. A lot of people is expecting me to do well, and that's been the case for a few other drivers, actually, as we got a few retirements in qualifying. So we may as well get in to the qualifying session. A bit overcast at this moment in time. 17 drivers here this evening, but nonetheless, we're still going to have some cracking action, so make sure you stay tuned in. At the moment, we got both Mercedes out of the qualifying session. I'll need to check if they got qualifying bans or not. I'll need to double check that in a minute. But this track is very, very difficult for some of these drivers. A lot of elevation changes. A lot of people can get involved in a lot of spins. And the last time a lot of these drivers were here was around about, I think it was season 30. People were here as well. And in PSF1, where it was absolutely chucking it down as Marcados comes across the line in P1. And there was not much overtaking happening. But I know in F2, it was dry and there was a great overtakes there. That's why I like this track as well. But the last time quite a few of these drivers were here was in the crossplay event, which happened, I think it was in October time, in the first one where WRR won that one. Luckily, we got our revenge where we won the second one in Austria a week ago. Well done to those guys. But yeah, it's just quite difficult for some of these people. And since this track only came into force on the game in the middle of last year, well, they haven't had much time really to practice around this track.
No, they really haven't had much practice, like you say, but it's one of those tracks, isn't it, where you often find that the field is very closely packed. It's quite a short circuit in terms of lap time. It's a fairly difficult circuit, like you mentioned. There's a lot of high speed, a lot of low speed, a lot of elevation change. This is probably one of the tracks where elevation change is probably the biggest factor of the circuit. So apart from despite all of those differences, it's a track where everybody seems to be on a very level playing field, no matter really how well they do and their experiences with the season and what they prefer. So that's why you're going to see qualifying sessions really close around here, as already proven by the first runs. We've got the top 7 within 0.2 of a second of one another, all very close together so far after the first runs. By the way, just checking out for the Mercedes, I think Brock did have a qualifying ban by the looks of things, but Tom actually crashed coming out of turn 4 on the start of his qualifying lap. So he is out of the session just through a pure incident, is Tom. So not a great start to his night, unfortunately. But of course, 17 drivers, a little bit less of a struggle, and this is a fairly easy track to overtake on. The DRS straight is very long down the pit straight here, so that is definitely going to be something that could benefit him later on. And of course, like you mentioned, this track really came into fruition on the previous game, but there is rumours circling around after China's cancellation that this will be the track that replaces China on the calendar for 2023. So hopefully, fingers crossed, going into the future, you get to see a bit more of this track, because I personally absolutely adore this track. It's not a track that suits my driving style, but it is a really well modelled and a beautiful track to drive. So I'm glad that it could potentially be staying around for another season in real life Formula 1. And personally, I hope it stays around in Formula 1 for a long time, because I do think it's a brilliant track.
And did I mention it's one of my favourite tracks on the calendar? I probably mentioned it too many times this season, but yes, it's a personal favourite of mine as a racer and as a commentator as well, despite the fact that there's sometimes where I'm not good at it, but it just flows so nicely on a wheel, at least, definitely. But turn 8 could be an absolute nightmare. We're running on board with Nando at the moment. He was purple in sector 1, according to the game. He passed turn 11, heading towards turn 12 now, as we're heading towards the roller coaster section coming up, as Lando Norris likes to call the famous team radio, as you find on the internet. You can find it somewhere on Twitter or someone's Twitch streams as well, if you wanted to as well. Here he comes now, heading towards the final corner. The start-finish straight he goes. What lap times are going to be for Nando? A 1:17.0, so still a lot of time to find for the Alfa Romeo driver. We got Louis, who's recently moved esports teams recently from FBR to Team Shazoo, so interesting to see how he does with his new team. A 21.8 for him in the first sector as he heads towards Touré VIP, a corner which I absolutely love on this game, heading towards turn 6 and 7. A few people can be caught out through the blind apexes here as you head towards turn 8. But Samson, that's where we see quite a few spins as we go up the hill towards Craig Jones of turn 9. I don't know why they called it that corner, but that's what I got on my track map. Heading towards Portimao, turn 10, and then heading towards turn 11, going up the hill. Purple in sector 2, according to the game. 51.8 for Louis. And remember, Louis got pole in Monaco, someone who I was not expected to get pole, and he managed to take the win here. Could this be the same for him in Portimao? Of course, we'll have to wait and see as he goes towards the final corner. He's got a Red Bull in front of him, so he's not going to get much for slipstream. Pole time in F2 was a 1:16.5. Can he get near that? No, not quite. A 1:16.8 for Louis. So Orgiano still holds provisional pole position with a 1:16.7. We've got Cerberus was on a lap, but he unfortunately invalidated. Not sure. No, he's backed off. I wanted to see him keeping going, but to see if he would have got pole anyway, but he wouldn't anyway, so he's backed off, so he's probably going to go in on another lap. There's a lot of people on laps now at the moment. Ascombe, though, in P2, unfortunately, he invalidates his run, so people struggling to get times in, as it seems.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way, doesn't it? It doesn't seem to be like people will be quite able to get a time on the board. Ogiano's just improved by 1/10 of a second in the first sector, so he's finding a little bit of time, is the Ferrari driver. But yeah, a few drivers still yet to really show their times. Across the line comes Rowan, as I say that, and he does a 16.5. So the winner from last time out in Silverstone goes to the front of the field quite comfortably as well. Nearly 2/10 clear at the front of the field does Rowan. So nice lap there from the Aston Martin driver. We'll see if anybody can get anywhere near that as the session winds on. I'm keeping my eye on Ogiano. He's now 2.5 tenths up on his lap time, so he could potentially jump to the back of the front of the field again as Fabi now goes into P2. So a good lap there from the Williams driver, who as another driver who started off the season really well, didn't he? And he had quite a good few runs in the opening rounds of the season, and then in the middle part has really kind of tailed off. We haven't seen the best of him, apart from, of course, in Silverstone last time out, where he did do a great drive in those wet conditions, as now Marlon goes into P2 in the Red Bull. And there we go, Ogiano back to the front of the timesheets on his 16.4. So now we are matching the pole time from F2, but again, like I said, it's this track is in qualifying, especially, it's very close. There doesn't seem to be that big of a pace gap, and that's showing in the difference in times between F1 and F2 at the moment, in that there's not that big of a pace gap between the divisions either.
Yeah, we saw that in F2 as well earlier on the PS side, and we saw that last week on the PC side as well. If you haven't watched that race, make sure you check that out afterwards as well. It was absolutely cracking. It was a wet to dry race, believe it or not, and it was quite close battles. Quite a few safety cars as well, which I think we could see around this track, and this track is very prone to rain, a track which I'm a lot better in the rain than other tracks on this game. Absolutely love it in the wet conditions, as Namaya's just backed off his run now. Ogiano and Rudy obviously have had a lot of practice around this track, because they were the ones who did race on the F2 side on Thursday. Both of them doing a not too bad of a job as well. Rudy getting close to the points, of course, and this gives them an idea of what to expect in the F1 side as well, as Marlon heads himself into the pit lane. So whilst we wait for people to start their next run, we'll go through the constructors ever so slightly. We've got McLaren that are leading the way on 75 points. Ferrari in second on 62. Aston Martin third on 58. We got Alpine fourth on 53. We got joint fifth and sixth with Mercedes and Williams on 40. AlphaTauri in 7th on 32, Red Bull in 29th, 8th place on 29 points, and we got Alfa Romeo in 9th on 9 points. Haas only scoring 4 points, but with them being pointless for the last 2 rounds, which was a shame, but I believe none of those two are here tonight, so no Haas full-time drivers are gonna score here this evening, as Ascombe is going on his next run. Marcados is about to do the same. A few drivers I was expecting to do well near the back, the likes of Legend, of course, obviously Cazizzo, the pole merchant from last season, Rudy, our championship leader, only in 8th position, but we have drivers like Rowan, who is chasing Rudy down in 2nd position and is looking like to be the favourite. Ogiano really starting to prove himself in this championship in some tracks in this calendar. Obviously, he didn't have a good race in Silverstone, but he did get a podium in Canada, and it was one of his best results of the season is Ogiano, but there we go. But we'll see what Rowan can do in the Aston Martin to see if he can get a provisional pole position. We'll see if anyone's about to finish that up. It won't be Jensen, though. He unfortunately has invalidated. Legend's about to go in to turn number 1. Nando's unfortunately invalidated. Frankie, of course, he's starting his lap as well. So, yes, people on their next runs as well, and we'll see if anyone can beat Ogiano's time. And I said that Marcados unfortunately has a spin, unfortunately going through. I believe it was turn 11 and 12. Yes, it was. So yeah, Marcados will have to go into the pits, but luckily he has a lot of time to go in anyway, so he can get one more lap soon. Hopefully he has plenty of softs left in the tank, otherwise it is qualifying could be over.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how many softs some of these drivers took out, because you can potentially get 4 runs in, especially if you do make a mistake on one of your runs and bail out early. You can get 4 runs in around this track. So we'll see if anybody's decided to go for those 4 softs on that softer compound. Assecomb's gone P2, by the way, in the AlphaTauri, and Namaya's gone P5 in the Red Bull. So a few drivers setting some improvements, because Zissel's just gone up ahead of his teammate, but Louis is on a better lap at the moment, currently P8, as Rudy, championship leader, crosses the line, goes into P5, but still not quite at the front, and Louis decides to bail out of the lap again that time around when he was nearly 2 tenths up. So a little bit of a strange decision there to come into the pit lane as Legend crosses the line, but again, only P5 for Legend at the moment, just ahead of the championship leader, and Frankie now goes P7 in the other McLaren. So drivers starting to find a little bit more of their feet on these second runs just before the final runs in the session, but still a few drivers we're yet to see really anything from at the moment. Jensen's still down in 14th position, not having the best of times. Rowan's now gone back to the top of the timesheets in the Aston Martin, so good lap from him. So while one Aston struggles, the other one is doing very well at the moment, and like you say, he's found a bit of a rhythm, hasn't he, so far in this midpoint of the season. Rowan didn't start off the season all that well, but in the midpoint, Rowan's definitely looked like one of the, if not the strongest drivers in terms of pace in the field. So he's really starting to build some momentum into this latter half of the season. Could he be the one to take the fight to Rudy as the season goes on? And yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's kind of turning it a little bit into a 2-horse race if you look at the momentum of things that are going on at the moment as well. Of course, Rowan's picked up that win last time out. He's picked up 2 wins this season, but he looks like really the only one that can challenge Rudy, because Legend, we haven't seen Legend close to a race victory as of yet, and he's not really built any momentum in the middle point of the season. So it seems like at the moment a bit of a 2-horse race. And one thing we've got to keep an eye on for the rest of the season as well is those Red Bulls. They've been so fast all season long, but they've never got the result together. It's incredible to me that when you were reading out the constructors, that Red Bull were down in 8th in the constructors. I can't believe that, because for the first at least 4 rounds of the season, we kept talking about the Red Bulls being the favourites to win a race, and it's just never come together for them, really, has it? We've seen Namaya qualify well and then make some sort of mistake or have a penalty in the race. Of course, he had a pit stop penalty that cost him the win in Zandvoort, and then you had Marlon, who was running in second, it felt like, for the entirety of the first half of the season, and kept spinning out of second place. So yeah, that's one thing we've got to keep an eye on for the rest of the season as well, along with the championship battle, is to see if the Red Bulls can recover any of the points that they lost in the first half of the season.
Yeah, definitely. But in comparison with Marcos' first season, he started off very, very weak in his first season in F1, because he got promoted from, I believe it was F3, but towards the end of last season, he did absolutely fantastic, and he's doing a lot better than he was at the start of last season, being more consistent. The only time he's not been in the points was round number 5. I believe that was Austria, where he had a DNF, and then it was Circuit Barcelona Catalunya, where he didn't score any points at all. Apart from that, he's got 4 points in Bahrain, he got 2 points around Zandvoort, 4 points in Canada, and 8 points at Silverstone. He had a very good race in Silverstone. I believe both Williams had a good race at Silverstone, finishing, I believe, 4th and 5th, respectively. Both of the teammates working together there. I think Marcos had Fabi to thank there for Marcos performing well, because Fabi was able to hold up the rest of the field behind, so Marcos was able to pull away. But we'll see what Fabi can do in 9th place, to see if he can pull off his defensive prowess that we know and love. And we're now at this point of qualifying, where I like to call the calm before the storm. People are about to set their final runs, and we got Marlon and Louis going extremely early on their first run, so we will see if the clean air is going to help them a little bit as well, to see if they can improve on their 4th place and 11th place respectively. Marlon having a really great qualifying session so far, 2 tenths separating himself and Rowan so far, which I have to say is pretty decent for him, but he knows he's got a lot of work to do to get that elusive pole position. He's had pole in Zandvoort, but didn't score any points, so maybe he does not want a pole position. So he's down in the first sector, though. That's not good for him. We'll see what Louis is. He's a few hundreds up in the first sector, so Louis doing a lot better in comparison to Marlon at the moment. We've got more people on just about to start their runs. It's going to get very, very busy, isn't it, Aidan?
Yeah, it is definitely going to get very busy. I'm just watching a ball with Louis at the moment. He's now nearly 2.5 tenths up in the middle sector, so good middle sector there from the Alpine. But he has got a little bit of traffic in this final sector. I'm hoping that they don't get in the way. I think he should just about get away with it as our Monaco race winner. So, of course, he picked up 17 points in Monaco, picked up 1 point last time out, and that's the only time he's scored points this season, has Louis. But we'll see what he can do as he crosses the line. Can he throw himself to the front of the field and be a bit more of a contender in the latter half of the season? P3. That's a brilliant lap time there from Louis as he goes into the top 3 onto the second row of the grid. So lovely lap time there from Louis. I'm just seeing what Marlon did at the end of his lap. He's found time in the middle part of the lap, but he has clearly made a mistake somewhere in the final part of the lap. He has dived into the pit lane. Marlon's qualifying session is over, and he will be at best P6 as Marquez now goes into P5 in the Williams. So drivers starting to find their feet in these final runs of the session. I think Fabi will be next across the line, but he's only slightly up on his time. That could put him ahead of Namaya and Frankie, but they're also on laps as well to try and improve. So we'll see what Fabi can do. But everybody at the moment seems to be improving, apart from Frankie, who's invalidated.
Well, Fabi has moved himself into P6. He found a lot of time in that final sector. I believe we got one of the Alfa Romeos up coming across the line. We got Nando, but he can't improve on his position. He improved on his time, though, with a 1:16.8. We got Jensen coming across the line as well. Rowan improved on his time ever so slightly with a 1:16.4. Jensen up to the line now, a 1:16.8. Moves himself up into P14. We got, I believe, I might be Asacombe, who's on a run. Yep. He is. He improves himself into P2. But we got Legend. That's what I'm talking about from the Ferrari driver. The man who hasn't won a race all season. He's now on provisional pole position. Can anybody beat Legend's lap time? Well, it won't be Namaya. He is just invalidated. And it won't be Frankie. He is invalidated either. Marquez has backed out of his run. And I'm just trying to see if anyone else is on the run. Louis is going into the pit. So at the bitter end of this qualifying session, Legend, who is third in the standings, only a few points behind Rowan, is your pole sitter for today's Portuguese Grand Prix. A man who likes Portugal. So I think this should be a good race for Legend. We'll have to wait and see. But very, very close between the top 6, I have to say.
Yeah, very close. In fact, pretty much throughout the whole field, it's very close. Only just under 3 tenths of a second separating the top 12 in that qualifying session, with Nando Jensen and Surface just a little bit detached at the back, but still not far off. So, yeah, really close qualifying. There's something about a Ferrari and qualifying on pole around Portugal, because last time we were here, Max Wiesel, of course, got pole in the Ferrari. So, Ferrari, Portugal, pole position seems to be the way it goes. We'll see if he can hold on for that first race win of the season. But yeah, starting off the latter half of the season in the right way is Legend. And Ferrari as a whole, with Oggiano P4 as well. And of course, Ferrari currently running second in the manufacturers, not that far off McLaren at the moment, with McLaren a bit further down in the pecking order. So good start to the final half of the season for the two Ferraris. Good opportunity for them to potentially take the lead in the manufacturers if they score well tonight.
Yeah, definitely. We will go through your qualifying results once again. So we've got Legend on pole, Rowan in second, a Dutch 1-2 here. We've got Asacombe and Oggiano third and fourth. Louis and Rudy 5th and 6th. Marquez, Fabi 7th and 8th. We've got a Williams 7th and 8th there. Marlon in 9th. Cazillo in 10th. Then we've got Frankie Namaya, Nando, Jensen, Service, Brock and Tom lining up on the grid. Brock and Tom obviously did not set laps. Brock due to his quali ban and Tom due to him crashing out. But before we go into the race, let's have a quick word from our title sponsor, GT Omega. We will see you in just under 30 seconds. Hello everybody and welcome back to PSGL PSF1, and good news everybody, we're not going to have a race like we saw a few seasons ago in the top tier. It is starting off dry at least, which is going to be an absolute relief to the drivers involved, including us in the commentary box as well. We got myself and Aidan Carter taking you through the action for today's race. Now, a lot of drivers I would expect would start on the hard compounder tyres. The hard compounder tyres feel quite nice around there, but we will see some people on the medium tyres, but we could see people be very brave and do a hard to soft strategy or soft to hard strategy. I don't think many people will want to start on the softs, to be honest, as well. Pit lane loss around here, around 24.5 seconds. It is 15 corners, 6 to the left, 9 to the right, with a few DRS zones to boot. So, no formation lap, remember. So we're about to get underway with the racing. Our first race on 2023 on the PlayStation platform. And it is lights out and away we go. And let's see who has a decent start. It looks pretty even, but Legend has the better getaway. Markador's had a great start as well, up into 6th place. A lot of position changes already up the back of the field. But turn 1 could be a hairy situation as Cazidle and Fabi come together. Brock going side by side with Namaya there as well. No safety cars as well, so everyone else managing to get away unscathed. Rudy gets past Markados once again. Have we got a McLaren at spun? That is Frankie. That's had a bit of a moment there in turn 4. He's now out of the race, and we may get a virtual safety car or a safety car. It is a virtual safety car that we have just got, so the field is neutralised a little bit. Chance for us to have a little bit of a breather for this moment in time. Look at the tyres, and as expected and as predicted, everyone opted for the hard tyres.
Yeah, everyone for the hards, not a surprise with the strategy and with how long the pit lane is here as well. It's definitely one of those strats where you want to get the harder compound out the way first. But yeah, that was a messy first few corners, wasn't it? Turn 1 is always a bit of a pinch point. It's very fast around here. They don't use the bike chicane at turn 1, so it's always a pinch point at the start. But yeah, Fabi and Kazizel coming together with, I think, a couple of other drivers. Namaya definitely involved in one of those, I believe, as well as one of the Mercedes drivers potentially could have got caught up in that as well. So yeah, big mess in the mid-pack through turn number 1, but I think other than I think Fabi and Kazizel will probably be pitting potentially for damage. Definitely Kazizel. I'm not sure about Fabi. I think everybody else looks like they've gotten away with no damage, at least as we start. Once again, the virtual safety car has ended, and we've got Tom in the background trying to make a move on surface to get into P11 in the Mercedes after not staying a quality time, and he is through without the help of DRS. So that is a good car in a straight line, as that Mercedes is up to 11th already from the very back of the field. Tom is already up 5 places, so he's had a good start in the Mercedes, of course, benefiting from other people's misfortune. Other drivers who have had a good start, by the way, Louis had a decent start. He's up a place. He's past Ogiano, and Jensen, the best start of everybody, up 6 places to P8. He's had a dream start in the second Aston.
Yes, he is. Obviously, a few people have improved on their setups. Of course, a lot of people were running time trial setups when Portimao was only a thing a few months ago, but now they started to develop their setups more, and hopefully we should have some good racing as a result. But yeah, Jent's getting the best start overall as he looks to try and get past Markados for P7. Markados was having a very good battle with Rudy earlier on as well. And now as the field is back racing once again, Rowan is not able to get past Legend yet, but they are just saving their battery when they need it. The DRS detection point will be very, very soon. We'll lap number 3, and we'll get to see some moves potentially in turn number 4 and turn number 5. Orgiano was looking very, very close, by the way, to Louis on that final corner, so we'll see if he can make a move very, very soon as well. We got people into the 1:20 20s as Legend was describing at the moment. We'll see if Orgiano try to get moved down the inside with the help, I think, with ERS and DRS. I think he would have got the move done, but obviously DRS not activated yet, as Orgiano almost hit the back of Louis there, but luckily he stopped the car just in time there. Could have been a lot worse at the moment, so Orgiano, you can have the benefit of the DRS, but we're going to see a massive DRS train, and we know how DRS trains are on this game. It's very, very difficult to overtake, but it does make it a little bit more exciting indeed. So Kazizel had to pit for a new node. He went on to the sauce, believe it or not, so I'm guessing he wants to go long later on in the race rather in the beginning of the race. Namaya has pitted onto the medium compounded tyres, so I would expect Namaya to maybe go onto the softs later on as well, maybe go onto the hards once again, of course, because they were only on for 1 lap, unless they had a bit of an issue with their tyre, which I hope not at the moment. I just like this shot as they head towards down turn 13 and 14. This is a very technical mix of fast and slow corners, lots of elevation changes, lots of gradient changes. First Portuguese Grand Prix, by the way. The last time Portugal held a Grand Prix was back in 1996. Damon Hill winning at Estoril, a track that hosted Formula 1 13 times from 1984 to 1996. And then obviously we were back in Portimao in COVID times in 2020 when F1 were looking for tracks to replace the ones that got cancelled due to COVID, and obviously we could be back for this year as well, which I really hope we do, because Portugal is lovely as well, and we could see Lando Norris having his famous radio messages once again. Who knows, he could come up with a brand new one at the moment. No major battles at the moment. We got Ogiano on 62% battery. We got Louis on 49. Ascombe doing the best out of a lot of them with 75. So he's being a lot patient compared to the rest. We're only using a bit of overtake to try and keep into Legend Slipstream at the moment. So I think that's very, very key for him. But I think the most important thing for these drivers, I think it's got to be the strategy. When will they come in? Will they go for the undercut or the overcut? We will obviously have to wait and see. But a lot of these drivers will want to go long on these hard tyres so they can make use of these mediums later on. Don't forget, these hards can go 26 laps. So if it was to rain at the end of the race, they can go for as long as that, and they can stretch them for more than 19 laps if they want to. But we will see what these can do as we head on to lap 5 now.
Yeah, heading on to lap 5, we've kind of entered that phase, haven't we, now, where everyone's just starting to settle down and keep themselves in the rhythm, not make any mistakes, and just wait for the strategy to come into play. This is one of those tracks, though, where it's very easy to make a mistake if you lapse that 1% of concentration. So you've kind of got to be pushing and focused as much as you can around a track like this to make sure that you're not making mistakes, especially around corners like the one we just went through at turn 4. As you saw already in qualifying, Tom, that was where he crashed out off the qualifying session. Just looking at Marlon, very close to the back of Jensen down towards turn 5, but it wasn't close enough to think about a move into the hairpin, so it doesn't go for the move this time around. Brock is the first driver to start kind of losing that DRS train at the moment in P13 in the Mercedes. He obviously didn't set a time in qualifying, and in the race at the moment just not looking like he's got that much confidence. And there we go, through turn 8, another one of those corners that is very difficult to navigate. He has a big snap of oversteer on the exit. So yeah, Brock is just starting to struggle in that Mercedes, and that's holding Fabi back now, who had, previous to Brock losing DRS, Fabi had just managed to get back within DRS range of the train in front, having lost out after the earlier skirmishes. But now with the Mercedes in front of him holding him up, he is now starting to lose the train again. So Fabi may be potentially a little bit frustrated that it's Brock directly in front of him, struggling that little bit. But yeah, everybody's pretty much in the top 7 at the moment. Everybody's spread by about half a second, so everybody's running very equally apart at the moment. I have noticed, though, Louis going off the track a couple of times, especially at turn 1. That is one thing we're definitely going to be talking about tonight, is track limits, because turn 1 is a corner that is so on edge, and as along with other corners on the track as well, we're going to see a lot of drivers go off the track and potentially pick up warnings. I think Louis potentially may already have 2 to his name after a couple of skirmishes at the first corner. So yeah, that is definitely going to be something we have to look out for tonight, as Fabi has got that move done on Brock and is up into 13th, but is now quite clearly off the back of the DRS train in front.
Speaking of track limits, turn 1 was one of the corners which was mentioned by the stewards that the stewards will be keeping an eye on. So if they do extend turn 1 like Louis did, they could be in a lot of trouble. And there's also other corners where track limit extensions will be monitored. Will be turn 2, turn 4, turn 5 and turn 8. It might not result in a warning in game. It might catch a lot of people. It may give them a triple warning, or it may not give them a warning at all. So yes, these drivers will need to be careful with that. If they are caught extending that and they do not get a warning for it, they will be penalised, of course. But if they do get a warning, then that's not a problem. They probably will be penalised anyway in game. So lap 6 then, we will see if anyone will take advantage of turn 1. I think we could see, I think Louis trying to make sure Guyana does not get any slipstream. We've got Marlon, who's passed Jensen in the braking zone into turn 1, and he's up into P8. And Jensen's still on the points, but Marlon wanting to make sure he still stays in the points as well, and chasing down Markados as well. And high temps can be a massive factor around here, especially with these hard tyres on this game. This tyre model is obviously a lot harder compared to previous games, but I think I've spoken to a lot of drivers that they do prefer the hard tyres on this year's game than last year's game. I have to say the hard tyres, I think, were awful on last year's game for me, and it wasn't a viable option for some tracks. But luckily, this game has made it more of a viable option for pretty much all the tracks, really, unless you want to do 2-stop, which is highly unlikely in PSGL, as everyone now heads towards turn 10 and 11. And by the way, if you do want to get some lovely gear, some lovely products for the new year, make sure you check out our title sponsor, GT Omega. You can use the code in the description. You can use code PSGL to get 5% off, and click the link in the description as well. And don't forget the champion in PSF1 will get a voucher to spend towards GT Omega products, as does I think the top 6 tiers on PC and the top 2 tiers on PS. I think F2 get a voucher as well, as we got some move from Marcos well down the inside of Rudy. They almost got on the track a little bit, make a bit of contact, and Rudy and Marcos has spun. So yeah, very hard corner to make an overtake, but side by side there for them two did not work, and they lost a lot of places as Marcos and Rudy. So our championship leader falling by the wayside. I'm almost certain the stewards will be looking at that.
Yeah, they definitely will. I don't know how they'll side for that one, because turn 1 is always a difficult corner to overtake on, but I don't want to always place blame on a driver, but I feel like that one's more on Rudy than anything else. I think Marcos was fully alongside going into turn 1. He had the right to some space on the inside. Rudy didn't give him that much space, and then at turn 2, Rudy definitely completely chopped the nose off that Williams driver. Didn't give him any room on the apex of turn 2 when Marcos was still there. So I think that's almost Rudy on himself, potentially spinning himself out of contention and taking Marcos with him more than anything else, which is a bit of a shame for Marcos and for the Williams team as well. That means now both Williams are outside of the points in 11th and 12th. And of course, that is probably the first big mistake we've seen from Rudy all season, and right now is not the race that Rudy wants to be doing it, because the 2 closest people to him in the championship are running 1-2. So that was not the time for Rudy to be making that mistake. And I think if Rudy's now going to go for a move on Brock here down the straight, I think if I were Rudy, I probably would have let that one go personally. I think Marcos was fully entitled to the space on the inside. Rudy didn't give him the space. He fought it really hard to try and keep the track position, but in the end they ended up spinning themselves further down. I think if Rudy wanted to play the long game, I think he should have just let Marcos go in that situation.
I think so too. Of course, it's up to the stewards, not us, but I think we share the exact same view that obviously Rudy should have backed off a little bit. But the thing is as well, with Rowan in second place, he's 17 points behind Rudy going into tonight. If Rowan wins and gets the fastest lap, that'll be 3 wins for him, 2 wins for Rudy. They'll be tied on points, but Rowan will be leading on countback. So Rudy cannot afford to be where he is right now in P13. He's going to hope for a safety car, which will bring them back into this race, or for Rowan to have some issues. But yeah, if Rowan has a good race and Rudy doesn't, then the gap's going to close up massively. It's going to close up massively anyway, where it is with Rowan in second place, but Rudy will still be leading the championship by a few points. But that's not what Rudy wants. But it does make the championship wide open. It's good for us viewers watching in the commentary box, and as spectators, of course, as viewers, but it's not good for Rudy. So he's got a lot of work to do, of course, and he doesn't want to get any penalties, which will compromise the rest of his championship. So yeah, first mistake, apart from what we saw in that one with the guys in the back who are not in this DRS train, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a shame for those two, of course. But we'll also go back to our front 2 battling with Legend, still 5 tenths behind Rowan. Legend still not wasting his batteries, on about 94%. So doing a great job to keep the guys behind him with using minimal battery, which is great to see. He's only using it when he needs it, just here as well. Only using it for a little bit potentially as well. I thought he'd be using it more on the straights, but we will see as we head towards turn 1 later. As we have past Portsmouth heading towards turn 12, Legend has increased the gap even more by a few tenths. So Legend is just showing, don't count me out of this championship fight just yet, because I'm still in this, don't forget, even though I haven't got a race win. So yeah, Legend's probably proving to us that he can win a race this season, but it may come at a cost to his championship rivals, but we'll obviously have to wait and see. Nando, on the other hand, is looking like he's going to go for a move past Jensen in the braking zone heading towards turn 1. He's not using any ERS to get past, only the DRS, and that shows how confident he is on the brakes. Nando up to P7, and he's doing a perfect job so far. Rudy has got past Marcos this time a lot cleaner. I think Marcos showing what Rudy must have done, well, should have done a few laps ago, was backed off. So yeah, I don't think Marcos did anything there because he didn't want to get caught up once more. So Rudy up to 12th, Marcos down into 13th position.
Yeah, down to 13th, like you say there. I think they're just going through the motions now, just trying to see if they can catch back up to Fabi and form a bit of a train themselves, but they're a bit disjointed now at the back of the field, unfortunately, after that. And I wouldn't be surprised as well if one of them, if not both of them, does have a little bit of damage on their car. It was a pretty hefty hit at turn number 2, so even if it's a slight bit of front wing damage or potentially something on the floor or the rear wing, I wouldn't be surprised if there's something on one of these cars. Maybe Marcados. I don't think Marcados looks anywhere near as fast as he did before the collision, so potentially some damage, I would say, on Marcados' Williams, looking at the way that that car's handling. I mean, he's understeering all over the place, so I think potentially that Williams does have a bit of damage on it. So the earliest opportunity he can come into pit for a set of mediums, he will definitely take it and probably take some sort of front wing change if that's where the damage is as well. That spin, of course, as well, what it has done is has separated the top 5 from the rest of the field. Everybody else is pretty spread out. Marlon currently kind of in a race of his own at the moment as Tom now gets past Jensen. So after Jensen's great start, you can kind of tell that he was maybe a bit higher than his pace suggests, and he's just starting to slowly fall back through the field again, as Brock is the first driver to get a track limits penalty, I believe. So yeah, just as Jensen's race started off really well, now the drivers that were faster than him that he passed at the start of the race are now starting to come back at him and pass him as the race gets further into it. So yeah, Jensen's just starting to slowly slip back down through the field, and Marlon now in P6, having those 2 drivers spin out in front of him, has separated him from the top 5. And of course, we know how powerful a DRS train is, especially around a track like this where the pit straight is so long. It's just costing Marlon loads of time sitting in P6 with no DRS. He's losing nearly half a second a lap. So Marlon is just falling further and further back in that 6th position. So unless there's some sort of safety car later on, you could probably say that P6 is the best Marlon can hope for, unless anybody in front makes a mistake, because that's the thing about Portimao, is an undercut around this track isn't really that big. The tyre wear's not huge. The tyre temperatures are more of a problem, but the tyre wear itself isn't that big of a problem around here. And of course, the problem as well with this track is that because you come out of the pit lane immediately into fast corners, you're not going to have a lot of confidence with those cold tyres, especially at turn 4. So I would say an undercut isn't all that powerful around here. So I think Marlon potentially P6 is the best he can hope for now after those spins for the drivers in front of him, unless anybody makes a mistake. So yeah, it's now we've had that little bit of a drama. We had that little bit of drama mid-race between Rudy and Marcados. It's settled down once again in the midpoint of the race, and now we're just waiting to see who's going to be the first to pull the trigger. And I would not be surprised if it is Louis, because all season long it's been Louis pulling the trigger for the pit stops, and he's currently in P4. So if he pulls the trigger now and goes a little bit earlier than everybody else, he could throw himself into a podium position.
Yeah, he could as well, having a lot better of a season than last season. Of course, it's his second full-time season in PSF1. He spent most of his time in PSF2, a driver that I've known for a very long time, because he was there with my first season of PSGL, commentating in F2 back on F1 2020, that long ago, believe it or not. It's been 2 game cycles ago since I started with PSGL, and he's been a driver that has improved quite a lot, but he wants to aim high. He's already got a race win under his belt, but surely he wants more. Surely he wants to fight for podiums more often, fight for wins more often. I have to say, his pace has been improving towards the latter half of his hard stint. So maybe the tyre pressures with the drivers at the front are maybe starting to wear off a little bit, and he's starting to come into play, or maybe he's managing his tyres a lot better as they head towards turn number 3 now, and it's closing a little bit more on Ascombe. Of course, Ascombe not having the season that we would have liked. We are seeing Marlon, who is almost very close to Nando there as well. We got Tom also very, very close to Marlon. So we got, I think, a 3-car train for P6. We could see some moves coming up there as well. Tom very close to Marlon once more, going through Torre Vit. Again, not able to get the move. Don't forget Marlon with that penalty. So Tom really didn't need to fight that, but he's got Jens behind him, so he wants to get, I think, past both cars ASAP, because he knows that Nando is very, very good on race pace. And I have to say, Tom has had the best race pace in terms of everybody who started lower down, because he started near the back due to his crash, and is now up into 8th position. But he's just biding his time, just waiting for a little bit. But that almost could have been an instant for Tom, but luckily, again, it wasn't. Oggiano, I think, in the same predicament, trying to get past Louis. So Oggiano and Louis doing a lot better on race pace terms to Ascombe. I think everyone is starting to get even a lot closer as the pit stop window is almost starting to open up for these drivers. Rowan then, could he get moved past Legend into turn 1? He almost did, to be fair. His straight line speed was a lot better compared to Legend. He could have used a bit of ERS, but again, he's saving enough towards the end of this race, because you use up a lot around it, and if you use up too much around it, like we've seen in PSGL in the past, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. As Rowan's only a few attempts down on his previous best, so his pace has been showing to be very, very consistent. We'll see what the other drivers are towards the back of this midfield train. They're still roughly about the similar pace as well, but the guys in the front are showing their class once again, with obviously Nando 3.4 seconds behind this train. He's now pretty much truly in this situation, but he wants to try and pull away as much as he can. But yeah, pit stops coming up soon, and like we said, whoever pulls the trigger is going to be the one that sets the benchmark for everybody else.
Yeah, we'll have to see who does pull the trigger in that one. Just as we were talking about Marlon earlier on, he suffered a bit for the last couple of laps. That car is looking a bit edgy, is that Red Bull. Nando managed to get past him on the pit straight a couple of laps ago, and he's nearly dropping Marlon from his DRS range. He's not far away from doing so. So, yeah, like Outplay said in the chat just recently, Nando is having a good race. Best race of the season so far. If he were to finish in this position, it would be Nando's best result of the season. His previous best is a P7 so far this season. So we'll see what Nando can do. If you keep an eye on the Delta for Nando, he is actually matching the pace of the drivers in front in the middle and final parts of the lap. He just then loses all the time again down the pit straight when they all have DRS. So Nando has got the race pace to match the drivers in front. He's just got not the track position to go with it, and track position on this game is incredibly crucial. So yeah, Nando may be a little bit unlucky in that sense that he's not being able to fight at the front, because he does seem to have the pace to be able to do so. So we'll keep an eye on what he can do later on once the pit stops are coming into play. And like you mentioned, everybody's saving ERS. Of course, one thing these drivers can do while saving ERS, that does mean that if somebody does pit early and goes for that undercut, they can burn that ERS on their in-lap and do the overcut, of course, while everybody tries to warm up their tyres. So say if someone like Rowan or Legend decides to pit now, Asacombe could go a lap longer, burn the 85% ERS that he's got in his back pocket, and overcut the Aston Martin while they're trying to heat up their tyres. So that is one benefit of having the ERS saved at this point. Is not only is it going to be good for you when you're on the mediums later on and fighting a little bit harder, but also if somebody comes in for the pits now, you can do the undercut. And there's the person that pulls the trigger. I was bang on. It's Louis. Louis into the pit lane from P4. Not a surprise, just over the halfway point. The medium should get to the end of here from here fairly easily. He's into the pits. Fabi is in as well. Not a surprise at the very back of the train. He clearly wants to regain some of that track position he lost earlier on lap 1.
And that is why I'm the play-by-play commentator, and Aidan is the co-commentator, because he knows his stuff. He knows who the best person to pull the trigger. But yeah, it is Louis that comes out on top with the one to pit first, along with Fabi. We'll see what these two can do towards the end of this race as well. Pitting a lot earlier than I was expecting. I thought they would have come at a few laps' time, but as expected, the undercut maybe not as powerful as some other tracks. So we'll see maybe the top two try and extend it. But with the likes of Louis, he's going to give some helpful tips to Cazidle at the back and see what they can do. Fabi will give some tips to his teammate as well. So that should give them a lot of ideas as well. I wonder if more people down the back will go into the pits as well to give the teammates the data that they need. Well, the same can't be said for Rudy, because obviously his teammate was out of the race in lap 1, but surely a lot can be done to help himself in that matter as well. So we'll see if any of the front lot will dive into the pits. The answer to that is no for the top 3, but for Giano, he's following Louis' lead and going in. Not surprised, to be honest. He was near Louis in terms of the order, so he wants to make sure he goes ahead of him. So that's why he's obviously pitted now. Brott has also came into the pits to help Tom out a little bit as well, because double stacking, you can't really do that much on this game. So Brock comes in into the setup, the medium, as to be expected. A safety car right now would not help some of these drivers, because obviously it would help the ones at the front who have not pitted yet. So maybe they try and extend their stints for that purpose as well. But yeah, not surprised for some of the drivers that came in at the moment, in particular Brock and Orgiano. Believe it or not, Orgiano came out ahead of Louis as well, but Louis is going to have the benefit of much warmer tyres, so he's going to try and get past Orgiano on this straight, heading towards Torre Vip. Can he go down the inside? The answer to that is yes. Louis is up to 11th place, so Orgiano had the advantage coming out of the pits, heading towards turn 5 with the warmer tyres. Louis has got ahead of him. Will he be able to keep this up when Orgiano's tyres are warmed up?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but that kind of proves the point, doesn't it? Orgiano went a lap longer, actually didn't burn any ERS that he had in his back pocket, and still came out on track ahead, at least, coming out of the pit lane. But, of course, Louis with the warmer tyres was managed to get through, as Rowan and Asacombe have now reacted, and they are into the pit lane. Legend stays out, though, but Legend did have the most ERS out of anybody in that top 3, so he can now burn and come in a lap later and still hold on to that lead. Crucially for Orgiano, while he's been warming his tyres up, he has just been able to stay within DRS range of Louis, so that will help him later on. But we'll see if the 2-lap undercut is going to make any difference to Asacombe and Rowan's races. As Rowan, I think Rowan has had a front wing change because he has dropped quite comfortably behind Asacombe in the pit lane, and Rowan's going to drop quite a few places. Asacombe comes out ahead of Louis, but Louis should be able to get this moved on the AlphaTauri fairly easily. Rowan's comfortably behind them, and way off the back of them as well, as Louis is going to go round the outside of turn 3. That is a lovely move. Asacombe was on colder tyres, but still, lovely move there from Louis. Now Asacombe has to defend from Orgiano, who's going to try and go down the inside. He's got to be careful of Louis. Louis reads the situation and gives the space, but that was a little bit of a dive bomb there from Orgiano. Asacombe has to go off the track. Louis defends the place and Orgiano stays behind, but that was almost an aeroplane crash, that one was there. Well done to Louis for recognising the situation and not turning into the apex, but for Louis that was potentially a little bit unfair. Orgiano sent that down the inside at a very sharp angle, and he's lucky that Louis read the situation.
I think it will be good to double check in the race direct as well to see if Rowan had a front wing change, because Asacombe, Orgiano and Louis got ahead of him, and Rowan was in P2 before the pit stop. So maybe he had a coming together on maybe lap 1. That's probably the only possibility, because apart from that, he's made little to no mistakes. So that is what I would like to know, potentially, once we see Legend coming out of the pit lane. He has no front wing change, of course, so he's going to come out comfortably in the lead out of everybody at the moment. And we got Louis, by the way. He's in a net P2. So Aiden obviously saying that with him pitting early, Louis could benefit from a potential 3rd place. Well, at the moment, he's running in the next 2nd place and doing a brilliant job, but he's got Orgiano hunting him down, Asacombe hunting him down as well. Unfortunately, Rowan is out of that DRS train, so he's struggling a lot to get those tyres up to temperature. The likes of Rudy, however, he wants to stay as long as he possibly can, as Marlon and Tom going side by side in towards past Toyvit, heading towards turn 6 now as well, as Marlon tries to get the upper hand and the switchback, and he does. We'll see if Tom can get the cut back into turn 8. The answer to that is no. Marlon is now up into the points position on track, but he won't get it due to penalties at the moment, because obviously Tom has no penalties so far. So those a lot of moves happening right now, but that's because the pit stops are happening and some people on much colder tyres right now. And I have to say, pure respect from Louis there. Good racing as well. It shows how much respect he's put into his racecraft this season. Obviously, he was in some instances last season as well, but this season he's done a lot better in terms of racecraft, which shows how confident he's become in this team. Meanwhile, Orgiano with the DRS has got past Louis up into a net P2. It's now a Ferrari net 1-2 at the moment, which is looking good in the Ferrari pit garage at the moment. Obviously, we don't know entirely what Matteo Madonnotto would have been thinking if he was still team principal at the team. But we'll see if Louis can cut back, because he does have the DRS. Not much ERS though compared to Orgiano, so that's why he is staying behind. But great move from Orgiano. He turned that perfectly, and he's up to P2. I think he's definitely benefited from that extra practice he had in the PC race on Thursday night, and it's definitely showing.
It's definitely showing, and I think he's also benefited from that dive bomb that he put on Asacombe about a lap ago, because had Louis not had to take avoiding action for that, Louis definitely would have been within DRS range of Legend after his pit stop. But because he wasn't, and he had to turn out the corner, he wasn't able to get within DRS range of the Ferrari, and that has opened the door for Orgiano to get past Louis and up into 2nd place. Has got a yellow flag. Marlon has spun the car. He's hit the wall as well, potentially. I don't know if he's picked up any damage, but just the story of Marlon's season, really, isn't it? It starts off so well, something goes wrong, and then it all kind of falls apart at the end of the race, and it's, again, another mistake from the Red Bull driver. And again, Red Bull, so much pace, on so much raw pace, no points to show for it at the moment. Currently 13th and 15th as it stands, so really, really rough race once again for the Red Bulls. Rudy's going to be next out of the pit lane, having gone very long on those hard compound tyres. For what reason, I'm not quite sure, because he's come back out still outside the points and way off the train of cars in front, and he still has to warm his tyres up, and surface is going to be behind him in not very long. So I don't quite understand why Rudy's only gone that short of a distance beyond some other drivers, because he's only got about 1 or 2 laps difference to most drivers in terms of tyre wear in front. I don't really think that's going to be that much of an advantage. So unless we see some drivers fall off or a little bit more battling in front, Rudy's going to have his work cut out getting back into the points positions from here. So yeah, that is not what Rudy wants. But luckily for Rudy, at least, Rowan's had a rough pit stop phase and he's managed to drop back down into a net P5 at the moment. So that's some consolation that Rowan from this position will not take the lead of the championship going into the next round. But Legend is only 3 points further back in the standings and will go within 3 points of the championship lead if he wins and takes fastest lap. So Legend here is kind of showing the pace that we expected from him all season long. This is kind of what we've been expecting from Legend from the very start of the season. We've not seen it yet. We have now seen it. This is what we expected from the very first round. Leading from the front, very comfortable in the first half, and now that he's got his own gap at the front, he is just driving away. And now Asacombe is going to try and take that final spot on the podium away from Louis. He's going to try and go down the inside, but Louis is going to hang it round the outside. Lovely defending there from Louis, holds on to the place, and that is what Marcos and Rudy should have done earlier on in the race. They gave each other room, and Asacombe backed out when the move wasn't on.
Yeah, I have to say, Louis planted the car absolutely perfectly. He knew where Asacombe was going to go as well. I don't think Asacombe was expecting that defence from Louis, but superb job from him. But that's allowed Rowan to get back in this picture as well. He could potentially have this last spot on the podium as well, even though he had some issues with his pit stop. What it might be, though, it might not be a front wing change. It might be due to the fact that he had a slow pit stop, because don't forget, you have to press a button to show on the pit stops. He might press it too early or too late. If you press it too early or late, you get, I think you lose about 3 seconds in the pit stops, which is not that bad in the scheme of things compared to obviously if you lose a front wing, but you lose about pretty much a second by pressing the button too early or too late, as I found out on this game. So it might be that's probably why he's lost a few positions, but Rowan has obviously got a lot of work to do, but he's still not out of this yet. Asacombe take 2 to try and get past Louis. Is it going to work wonders for him, or is Louis going to do exactly the same thing down the inside? And this time worked a lot better for him, and Louis had no response. Asacombe up into a net podium position at this moment in time, just what he asked for, and he's going to try and make sure he can try and close in on Oggiano as well. He does not want it to be a Talon Factory 1-2, a Ferrari 1-2. He wants Asacombe to be in second place, maybe even win this thing as well if any of the top 2 make a mistake. Don't forget, Marcos, the only driver still to pit. Oh, and Louis got a time penalty as well after having such a strong race. He's the 3rd driver to have a penalty to his name, so that means Rowan will jump up a few places as it stands. But I think you only lost 1 place, so that's some consolidation as well. But that just shows that it's so weedy sometimes to get penalties at certain parts of the track. Yellow flag. That is Mercedes that's round. That is Brock in turn 8.
Yeah, Brock round. He's not had a good race today as Brock. He's just not looked really comfortable in that Mercedes. And I think Louis now potentially starting to pay the price for that earlier pit stop just a little bit. Maybe the tyres are just overheating. He's burnt out on ERS, so that car's not fast in a straight line. And Rowan is now going to breeze past on the run to turn 1. Nothing Louis can do. He's back down to where he was pretty much before the pit stops. It was P4 before the pit stops. He's now P5. I think he just now needs to try and hope he can stick to the back of the Aston Martin in front and just hold on to that 5th position and hope Nando doesn't get within his penalty range. But Nando and Tom have managed to separate themselves from this train of cars in front and are now kind of on their own in P6 and P7 and steadily working their way forwards on slightly fresher medium tyres to the drivers in front. So keep an eye on Nando and Tom for the latter stages of this race. They could be still very strong at the very end of this race when their tyres are a bit fresher than the likes of Louis, Oggiano and Rowan in front. So don't count them out yet of still getting a top 5 position. I mean, Nando is now teetering on the edge of being within penalty range of Louis here. So Nando doing a very good job, having easily, I would say, his best race of the season so far in that Alfa Romeo. So keep an eye on him in the latter stages. Tom as well. Fair play to Tom for crashing out in qualifying in the very first time of asking for an actual qualification lap. Crashing at turn 4, not setting a time at all, starting on the back row with the grid, up to P7. Fairly uneventful race from his side of things. We've not really seen much of him. He's just kind of steadily worked his way through the field, picked off drivers when they've made mistakes, and he's managed to work his way through into P7 in this pit stop phase, still with an opportunity of a top 5 as well. So really, really good comeback in this race this has been from Tom. Probably one of the secret best drivers of the race so far, I would say, from the Mercedes driver. So another driver to keep an eye on for the latter stages of this race. As Rudy is now back into the top 10 after that late pit stop for Marcados. Rudy is now P10, so he's at least scoring a point. Fabi is his next opportunity, but I think for Rudy, you've got to say at this point in the race, probably the best he can hope for is P8, I would say.
Yes, indeed, and he's going to hope that Legend doesn't score the fastest lap point, because otherwise he's going to be within touching distance of Legend in the championship, and this could make things even more intense for everybody involved, and it's going to be potentially a three-way fight for the championship. We were talking about it being a two-way fight going into this broadcast, but now it could be a three-way fight with Legend back in the mix, and he's absolutely dominating this race so far. 1.8 seconds is the gap between himself and Oggiano as well. Another driver doing particularly well is Nando, 2.9 seconds. He's now within penalty range of Louis, so he could get into P5 right now, as the sun is still being very still at the moment. No threat of rain, which is great to see. I think Connor in the chat earlier on, I think, was quite relieved that there's been no rain in threat in this tier, because we know what happened last time in this tier, of course. But even though Legend's in P1 at the moment, it doesn't mean he'll stay there. He can't become complacent. He's got a lapped car in front of him, so he's got to get past him as well. But he's got a few more laps to contend with. You never know, there could be people in the background that may cause a crash. There could be safety cars. There could be quite a few drivers going on the soft tyres. It could all change, so don't think that the order will stay the same, because it might not be. It may turn on its head for all we know as well, but we'll obviously have to wait and see. But obviously we know who's going to be in the top 10 so far, because Servin is not catching up to Rudy ever so slightly, but he could find a few tenths a lap if he's lucky. But we are running short of laps going towards the end of it. No safety cars so far, touch wood. Hopefully we won't get any more. Zorgiano's closed the gap a little bit on his teammate Legend in the process as well. This is looking very good for Ferrari in the constructors, currently sitting in P2, and with Frankie out of this race and with Rudy only scoring a few points for McLaren, well, Ferrari could be top of the standings going into next week.
Yeah, they definitely could. It's been a really strong showing today for Ferrari with that 1-2, and you've got to think about as well where Oggiano was at the start of the season. Retired for the first round with an actual physical problem with his brake pedal. Missed the next 2 rounds of the championship because of that issue as well. Didn't score, I believe, in the round after that. He actually scored a 3rd place in the round after that, and then a 5th the next race in Monaco. So 3rd and 5th to kind of kick off the season. DNF, though, last time out in Silverstone. And now look at him, he's running in P2. He's had such good pace. It's been such a shame that Oggiano had to miss the early parts of this season for a mechanical issue, because he definitely could have been right in this championship hunt with the pace we've seen from him in this part of the season. So, yeah, shame to see that he's out of it really because of no fault of his own, but it's nice to see that he's getting some good results in the latter stages of this season. Rudy has now, by the way, solidified a pass on Fabi. He managed to get the move done in the middle part of the previous lap. Fabi tried to come back in a turn 1, but Rudy managed to hold on to the place. He's now up into P9. Jensen is next on his target list for that P8 position in the Aston Martin. But after that, there's a 4-second gap to Tom, and Nando are just continuing to extend the gap to the drivers behind. So I think, like I said earlier on, P8 is the best Rudy can hope for, barring any mistakes from the drivers in the top 7. So it's somewhat of a recovery. He will still score points. It will still mean he won't have a massive blemish on his championship run, but it is, of course, not what he would have wanted after such a strong run of performances as of recently with 3 podiums in a row. So, yeah, rough race today, unfortunately, for Rudy. I don't think he really has anybody but himself to blame for it after that incident, but at least he can still get something on the board out of this one. It's not a complete bust of a race. At least he's still scoring some sort of points. So, yeah, not too bad for him, as I say. We'll see now. I think really the only fight we've got left in this field, apart from Rudy and Jensen, is potentially Asacombe having a run at Oggiano for second. But in the lap since he's passed Louis, Asacombe's really not looked anywhere near close enough to challenging Oggiano for second.
Definitely not. I'm bringing back that point on Rudy having a bit of a horrible showing in this race. Dan Urko had some horrible races towards the latter half of the championship last season, and he still went on to win the championship. So it just goes to show sometimes having a good first half of the season could make all the difference. But the championship's a lot closer this season. You can't afford to have mistakes like that. So Rudy's mistake today with Marquinhos will come back to bite him. He won't be able to rely on obviously what happened with Denerco last season. Obviously, I have to say massive shout out to Denerco for doing an absolutely brilliant job on the PC side as well, doing very well in that championship as well. So he's continuing his form on the PC side as well. I think a few other drivers will transition to the PC very, very soon. I won't be too surprised as Cazidle setting the fastest lap of the race. Don't forget, no fastest lap point outside the top 10, unfortunately, but he wants some glory and he wants to probably try and seal it from the ones near the top, in the top 10, like Legend, for example, who's absolutely doing incredible. But we'll see if Orgiano and Ascombe can get into that train. Let's keep an eye on Rudy, by the way, on Jensen. That's the closest battle on the track, but he did extend turn 2 and 3 there. He got a 3-second time penalty for it, but at least the game did warn him for that as he going to head towards turn 4 and 5 into Torre Vic now. No major moves there from Rudy. Again, he's keeping it a little bit patient at the moment as we go to the latter stages. Let us know in the chat who you think is going to get that final podium position at the moment, or is it going to stay exactly as it is? Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. Apart from obviously Marlon and Frankie's 2 retirements, we've only had 2 retirements so far, which is great to see. So most people have been keeping it clean. There has been an instance like the likes of Rudy and Marquinhos are able to keep going and not give up, because that could be the difference on being in F1 next season or not, with just a few rounds to go of this championship. I'm watching Orgiano's pace for the last few laps, and it's definitely improved. It was about 1.7 seconds a lap ago. He's now 1.3 seconds behind Legend. So Orgiano seems to be picking up the pace a little bit. Could he be on for his first win in the top tier?
He definitely could, as Rudy gets the move on Jensen further down, but now that he's picked up that 3-second time penalty, as it stands, Rudy is almost back out of the points again. So Rudy needs to get a move on to try and at least gap surface and pick up a point. So that penalty is kind of undone all the work he did catching and passing Fabi and Jensen in the previous laps as that penalty for Rudy. And yeah, Orgiano is really coming on strong. He's almost back within DRS range here. It's 1.1 seconds. He's got great pace, but I would be very surprised if Orgiano takes this win away from Legend, considering where Legend is in the championship and where Rudy is on the road. I would be shocked if Orgiano decided to take this win off of his teammate. I mean, crazier things have happened. We've seen many crazy team calls in the past, but yes, I think Orgiano here, I think Orgiano is doing this more of a formation finish and just trying to fend off Asako more than anything else. So yeah, Orgiano's got the pace. I think Orgiano, obviously we didn't quite see his raw pace on the hard at the start because he was down in 5th at the back of this train, but it does seem that raw pace alone, Orgiano's probably been the fastest driver here tonight, but faster than his teammate ever so slightly, a 10th faster again on that previous lap. Only a minute difference, but he's looked like the faster Ferrari driver, but he's just not had the track position earlier on in the race. And of course, with his championship position and where Legend is, it doesn't really make any sense at all for Orgiano to take this win off of his teammate. So yeah, I think he's just showing that he has the pace and showing and proving to himself that he's got the speed to win these races, even if he doesn't win this one today. So yeah, still a great showing from Orgiano, and great to see him back at the front of the field where he should have been at the start of the season had he not had those issues. One driver who is trying to get back on the podium is Rowan after that slow pit stop. He's down on ERS though compared to Asako. He's really only got 2 opportunities left in this race, down the pit straight this time around and then into turn 5 on the final lap. But other than that, not really any opportunity for Rowan to pull this off. So Rowan's going to try and get back on the podium after that pit stop blunder. But still, P4's not bad for Rowan, considering where he is in the championship and again, considering where Rudy is on the road. But I think Rowan, knowing that with that mistake in the pit lane, Rowan potentially still had a shot of winning this race. So I think he's a little bit gutted that he's not fighting at the front of the field with the 2 Ferraris, instead trying to fight for the final spot on the podium. But with Asakome and the ERS he's got, I don't see Rowan taking this podium spot away potentially.
No, I don't think so as well. He's hardly got any ERS, so even if he does get past in this lap, he's going to be in a lot of danger. Ascombe is running out of ERS as well, so it could come down to straight line speed. The top 4 separated by a small amount. It will take just one small mistake from the front lot for the order to change quite significantly at the moment, as Ascombe almost had a bit of a tank slapper there going through turn 4, but Ascombe not closing up to the 2 Ferraris, unfortunately. Orgiano's picked up the pace a little bit, but he's got to keep an eye on the cars behind him as well to try and obviously keep everyone behind Legend. So yeah, I have to agree, I don't think he could be fighting for the win because he wants to help his teammate in the Drivers' Championship, but they will be leading the Constructors, I'm almost certain, going into the next round, so I'm sure they'll be very happy about that. Luckily, no trouble with the top 2, heading towards turn 11 and 12 right now. And it looks like the order's pretty much going to stay as it is. We're keeping an eye on the fuel usage as well. Legend is running low, but I'm sure he'll be absolutely fine as we head towards the roller coaster corner, as I like to call it. He's got plenty of ERS as well. If I were him, I would burn all of it in celebration, but don't use it through here as well. So Legend is going to come across the line to take his first win of the season. Overdue win, I have to say, but well deserved. Orgiano in second, Ascombe third, Rowan in fourth, Nando with his best result of the season in fifth, Louis in sixth, Tom with a great recovery drive in seventh. Damage limitation race for him, but surely he will take that P7. Jensen, a great result for him in eighth, Fabi in ninth, and Rudy gets your final points position. But finally, Aiden, Legend has got his first win of the season. A long time coming, I think.
Yeah, a long time coming. He's had 3 second places this season, but never looked really close to getting that first win. And like we mentioned earlier on in the stream, considering the wins he put in at the end of the previous season, it's been such a surprise to see Legend struggle to get that first win of the season. But took him 7 rounds. He's now into his stride, it seems. First win of the season, and this is, if there was ever a time to have your best race of the season and get that first win, it's now. Now is the time to do it, and that is a brilliant race there from Legend to get right back in this championship hunt. Had we potentially ruled him out coming into this race with how it was looking coming into it, so yeah, brilliant stuff there from Legend to get that first win of the season as well, and great for Ferrari as well. 1-2 finish, brilliant performance from both of them. Orgiano, standout performance, you've got to say, one of the drives of the day as well, along with his teammates. So yeah, so many drives of the day to put out there as well. I'm sure we'll discuss them in a brief minute, but yeah, brilliant time for Legend to try and get back into his stride.
I think we got too many drive of the days. Obviously, Tom with his comeback drive. We got Louis as well, who did very well with his defend, and Orgiano with that massive centre as well. To be honest, Louis looking at his mirrors, to be honest, it could have been a crash, but it wasn't, and to fair play to them as well. Obviously, there's quite a few other drivers that did well. It's just hard to tell. But we want you to tell us in the chat who you think should get your driver of the day. Let us know in the comments or in the live YouTube chat. But Legend is the star of the show at the moment, taking his first win. And Orgiano is doing his teammate proud as well. I wonder what it's going to be if those two get even closer in the championship standings. Highly unlikely. But imagine if it could be like this next season, in season 33. Remains to be seen. Running through your order, Legend did not get the fastest lap, which I think is a relief for Rudy's sake anyway. So Rudy still keeps the championship lead. Orgiano in second, Ascombe third. We've got Rowan, Nando, Louis, Tom, Jensen, Fabi and Rudy. Your top 10. No one gets fastest lap point because it belongs to Marcados in a P12. Service in P11. Namaya 13. Then we got Brock, Kazizzle, your finishers. And then we got Marlon and Frankie, your retirement in this race, unfortunately. Frankie did not even make it through past the first lap, unfortunately. But after this very good qualifying session, but so many people that should get driver of the day. But who do you think has been the star of the show today?
Oh God, it's hard to pick one, isn't it? I mean, there's such a case to make it for the Ferraris. Either of the Ferrari drivers, I would say, had a brilliant drive today. But I'm going to go different. I'm going to give my driver of the day to Nando. P13 on the grid, up to P5, 8 places. Didn't really realise that he'd started that far down in the field, but 13th to 5th in a race with no safety cars is a brilliant job around a track like Portugal, and he was fast all race long. I think if he had had a better track position at the start, he potentially could have fought for a podium with the race pace he had, able to hold off Tom in the latter stages as well and get within range of Louis to pick up that P5, you know, his P6 on the road. So yeah, I think even though the Ferraris did a brilliant job, I'm going to give Nando driver of the day purely and simply because of where he started, and compared to the races he's had so far this season, definitely his race of the season by far. He
was in F2 last season as well, which just goes to show, even if you're in a lower tier, you can perform well and deliver in the top tier as well. So yeah, Nando, his best performance of the season. I think a few of the people in the chat would agree with us as well that Nando drove absolutely sensational this race, and maybe he could be on the cusp of getting a podium this season. For the rest of it, we don't know, but we'll obviously have to wait and see who joins us in the interview room as well. Hopefully, I think someone just given me a mention so I can get what they wanted to ask if there's interviews. Yes, there is interviews, Legend, if you are watching. So hopefully Legend will be able to speak to us very soon. But I think let's look at a few drivers that did not perform in today's race. We have Rudy that didn't perform, Fabi as well after his 5th place in Silverstone, did not do very well here as well, and obviously the likes of Marcos as well, Marlon with his DNF, because it's all down there in 15th. This is not good if you want to be in this championship fight, and with Rudy making mistakes like that, could it be game over very, very soon? He's got to step up his game in the final few rounds. We do not have that long to go until the end.
Yeah, it's not really the right time of the season to be making these kind of mistakes, as it was definitely an avoidable error for Rudy. And the problem for Rudy now, other than the fact that, of course, that he's lost the majority of his championship lead with that mistake, the problem for Rudy now is that he's now lost the buffer that he had, and that he could play it safe. He can't play it safe anymore now with such a small championship lead, which I think will be down to just 4 points, if I'm not mistaken, after this race, which is the difference between a first and a second place finish. So Rudy, if he finishes second next time out and Legend wins, Legend will take the lead of the championship. So it's a case of Rudy, while he's still leading the championship, that 17-point buffer that meant he could play it safe for the final rounds of the season and not have to go for the win every single time, that's out the window. Rudy's now got to race for victory to keep that championship lead, which is going to be difficult going into the latter stages of the season, especially with Legend and Rowan definitely on form going into the second half of the season. So yeah, that's going to be very difficult for Rudy now. And again, like you mentioned, other drivers that had bad races, Marlon, another race where he could have had potentially a good result, and he kind of fumbled in the second half of the race. I think that's just showing that he came up from F3 last season. I think F1, he's obviously got the pace to be here. He has the pace to belong here. I think the racecraft just needs a little bit of work for Marlon. So maybe next season for him will be a much stronger season for the Red Bull driver. And again, I think Kazizel tonight was the last opportunity really for Kazizel to maybe throw himself back into the championship ring with a good result, especially if Rudy had a poor result like today, and Kazizel can capitalise on it. He was nowhere near, didn't have a good qualifying, crashed out earlier on in the first part of the race, and then with the lack of a safety car was never able to recover. So I think it is fair to officially say from here on out it is definitely a 3-horse race. There was definitely a shout for Kazizel potentially, but that is now out the window with this poor result. So it is now a 3-way fight definitely for the championship. And
I'm very excited, and we'll have one of these drivers in the interview room at the moment, so we'll drag him in because he wants to speak to us. We got a long overdue race winner in the commentary box at the moment. It is Legend. Legend, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear as well. First of all, well done for you. A fantastic victory. Lights to flag, believe it or not. Started on pole, went on to win the race. Pretty much back in the championship hunt. How do you feel about that? Are you relieved?
Yes. No, I'm very happy with this win. And I said to myself after the break, I want to try and win every single race. And it's a good start, so let's carry this on to next week as well.
Yes, exactly. Obviously, we were a bit worried going into the last round before Christmas that you weren't going to get that victory. Obviously, you had the change in mindset over the Christmas break to get that victory as well. What made it so comfortable today around Portugal to keep the drivers behind you? Did you just like the track, or was the setup good? What was it that helped you get that win today?
No, I think this track is actually my least favorite from the last 5 races. So, yeah, setup was good, the car was good, but I think overall the quality is very important. You really want to have track position, as the ERS is very hard to regain. So, I knew if I drive in P1, then I can keep that momentum in the race. And the pit stop is really crucial.
And even more crucial as well, your teammate finishing in P2, helping you out there towards the end. And more importantly, I believe, if my maths are correct, leading the constructors fight as well after McLaren having a poor showing as well. Is the constructors on your mind as well, or are you just solely focusing on the drivers?
I think the drivers comes first, but it's nice to see that we're leading the auto championship as well now. And Orgiano did a brilliant job today, so we both performed at our best. And I hope we can continue this and win that championship as well, because to win both is the best thing, I think.
Yeah, because I think I did predict you to win the championship at the beginning of the season, but then I had doubts going into tonight on when you were going to do it, but you did prove yourself tonight, so I think you're definitely back in the running now. So going into the next round, the final 4 rounds of the season, obviously got Belgium coming up next. Oh no, actually, I'll give Aiden a question because I'm worried I'm gonna nick a question off him. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll ask the Belgian question. I always it's an easy fallback, isn't it? Yeah, congratulations, Legend, on your first race win of the season. But yeah, looking at next week, like Jess just briefly mentioned, it is Spa this time next week. How are you feeling about Spa? You said you want to win every single one of the 5 races for the remainder of the season. Is Belgium one of the ones that you think you can easily win for the final part, or is it a track that's a bit more difficult?
It's never easy in F1, but yeah, I think Belgium isn't really a bad track for me. I think it's a pretty good one, but I think really if I look to championship mentality, of course, I want to win every race, but it's hard. But I think I need to set minimum target every race podium for myself to try and win it. But obviously, I will always go for the win.
No, yeah, your minimum's a victory. Minimum's a victory. Go on.
Yeah, set yourself up now with that one. But yeah, that's it's a good mindset definitely to have going into the final 4 rounds of the season. It gives you that motivation. And speaking of the rest of the final 4 rounds, after Belgium, we of course have Australia, then Abu Dhabi, and the Circuit of the Americas to finish off the season. Which one of those would you say is probably your favourite track you would say going into the final 4 rounds? Which one would you say is the best opportunity for you to get that second win?
USA.
Oh, final round of the season. Perfect timing as well.
Well, he did win there last season.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I won last season there with, I think, a gap of 20 seconds. So.
Yes, we remember. We remember.
We do remember, yeah.
I hope I can repeat it, but I think it's going to be difficult. I will try.
We'll definitely be doing a rain dance then. But yeah, congratulations, Richard, on your first win of the season. And yeah, looking forward to the rest of the championship fight. You've made it very interesting after today.
Thank you. Thank you for commentating.
Thank you very much. Legend, our race winner, and 1 step closer to Rudy in this championship. And I don't think we have anyone in the rating room anymore to speak to us, unfortunately. We were quite popular a few weeks ago, but it doesn't matter anyway. We will hopefully have more people next week. But for now, we are going to go quickly. We touched briefly about it with our interview with Legend, but some of you may be thinking, hang on, it's not Abu Dhabi as the final round this time. The calendar has switched a little bit, so instead of Abu Dhabi being the final round, it is USA. It is, of course, to obviously match the first 3 rounds of PCF1, so it's pretty much the same, and it's to make it easier for all tiers involved. So if any of the lower tiers on PC have to fill in for PCF1, they only have to practice for 1 track indeed as well, and it does make things even more enticing for the likes of Legend, obviously, that I think USA is one of his favourite tracks. He now gets to sweat for it if it's the final round, and if he does win the title, then he could take it a little bit easy. But yeah, the final 4 round is going to be very, very exciting for our top 3 at least, and the ones who are in the running for the constructors, and I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. There's a lot of diversity with the final tracks of the season, isn't there? They're all very, very different. Of course, Belgium next time out will be all about that straight line speed and the lack of downforce on the cars to make the cars as fast as possible in a straight line. Australia, similar, but of course a very narrow street circuit and completely remodeled from what it was previously to this year. So yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting as well, racing around Australia. Of course, Abu Dhabi, we know the potential issues that do spring at the Abu Dhabi circuit. We talk about a lot with track limits and the curbs and many a different thing. It is a difficult circuit. And then, like, of course, we said Kota, final round of the season, more of the traditional F1 circuit, you would say. that kind of the track with a lot of corners based off of other corners of other circuits around the world. So yeah, definitely a good way to finish off the season. And I think now Rudy and Rowan now have a target in trying to make sure that they're a race win ahead of Legend going into COTA, because COTA, the COTA race win trophy at least, I think Legend potentially already has one hand on that. So that is going to be a target for Rudy and Rowan to try and make sure that he's too far behind.
Yeah, I think he's going to hope for a rain dance, to be honest, because that's where he got the 20 seconds, and he did well in Brazil as well. I think he's going to hope that the final 4 rounds are wet, to be honest. Well, Belgium in the past, pretty much most races I've commentated on in PSGL, most of them have been wet Belgian races. I think there was a few that were dry, but most of them were wet. So he's going to hope that the curse does come true, believe it or not. But yeah, exciting final 4 rounds of the season. It'll be great for you to join us as well next Monday. But if you want some more PSGL action, you can of course check out the other streams going on this week. We got GT7, I believe, starting very soon. But on Wednesday evening as well, we got the big reveal of the PC F1 tier, who's going to be racing in that. I'm very excited to find out who's going to be racing in that as well. So make sure you check that. I can't remember what time it is, but it will be George Morgan and Jack Canaan taking you through who's going to be racing. Obviously, we know 4 drivers that are going to be racing in that tier, but we will find out who else is going to be racing. So make sure you do keep an eye on that. And then we've got the other tiers that will be racing. We've got PC, F2 and F3 that will be racing around Belgium as well as the lower PC tiers as well. And then of course we've got the lower PS tiers as well that won't be streamed. Now we've got the highest assist tiers on the Sunday, and of course we've got us on the Monday taking you through the action at 8 PM UK time. Aiden, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Not much to say. I think congratulations to Legend for finally getting that first win and making us two not look too ridiculous with our pre-season favourites and our pre-season predictions. he's finally proved us right, thank God, so we don't look too crazy. Yeah. So congratulations to Legend, and yeah, looking forward to the final 4 rounds. It's definitely, I think this time last season we kind of knew Denurko was going to win the championship. It was just as to when rather than if Denurko was going to win. This time around it's completely up in the air. So really nice to see this really tight battle going into the final 4 rounds of the season between 3 drivers. So I'm excited to see who comes out on top.
Yes, and if you like the action, make sure you leave this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell if you are new. Check out our title sponsor, GT Omega. You can use the code PSGL and click the link in the description to get 5% off GT Omega products, which are top tier, by the way. We'll get a voucher from GT Omega, so special shout out to them. They've been supporting us for the last few seasons as well, and a good discount code to boot as well. You can also check our socials as well for more information. Also follow at Premier Sim Gaming, Premier Sim GL on Twitter and Instagram. So you can catch us on, or you can catch George Morgan and Jack Canaan on Wednesday for the PCF1 tier reveal show. But for myself and Aiden, we will see you next week at 8 PM for the Belgian Grand Prix, and we will leave you with our title sponsor to round off the stream. Have a good evening, everybody, and bye-bye.
This broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega, proudly supporting PSGL.